Hello, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Sat Sri Akal. My name is Wasima Ali, and I am the director of the Desmond Tutu Center. On behalf of Butler University, the Christian Theological Seminary, Women for Change Indiana, St. Luke's United Methodist Church, the Islamic Society of North America, the Muslim Alliance of Indiana, and the American Civil Liberties Union of Indiana, I'd like to welcome all of you to tonight's program, Talking Through Unity and Civility with John Kroll and Khizr Khan. Before we get the program started, I'd like to take a minute to thank all of the people that really helped make tonight a reality. To our sponsors, Congregation Beth El Zedek and Bill and Lynn Jackson, thank you for your contribution. To our volunteers who helped make sure everything went smoothly, thank you. To our security personnel, thank you for your service. And importantly, thank you to the staff at the Desmond Tutu Center and all of the partner institutions that pull through for this event. If you have not already silenced your phones, please take a minute to do so. Also, please take a look around you and look at the exits should you need to leave the facility for any reason. Restrooms are located outside in the lobby, some to the left, some to the right. There will be security out there to guide you. If you need to make prayer during or after the event, Fellowship Hall right across the sanctuary has been reserved for that very purpose. And know that we will be taking Q&A today, and Q&A will be collected at 8 p.m. So make sure that you get your questions in. Volunteers will be walking around with note cards. You will fill out those note cards, and at about 8:20, 8:15, we will start the Q&A session. Last but definitely not least, please make sure to find the Desmond Tutu Center and the partner institutions on Facebook. Your likes show us that our work matters. So now, to set the stage for tonight, I'd like to invite Rabbi Sandy Sasso from Women for Change Indiana to lead us in a civility pledge.
One of the core values of Women for Change is civility. At the opening of every meeting that we have, we join together in reciting this pledge, and I would like to ask you to join me in this evening. I pledge to be civil and respectful in my public discourse and behavior. I will honor the dignity of others, whether in agreement or disagreement. I will respond to incivility and speak up in the presence of name-calling, stereotypes, slanders, and slurs. I will do this for the sake of our children, for the healing of our country, for the future of democracy and peace. Thank you. It's my pleasure to call on the senior pastor of St. Luke's United Methodist Church, Reverend Rob Fuqua.
Thank you. We are so glad you're here. St. Luke's is very privileged and honored to be hosting this event tonight, and we welcome you. Thank you for being here for a very special night. And what a beautiful day it has been in central Indiana today, but we think about some people for whom the weather is not so beautiful right now. And we think about folks who have already been devastated by Hurricane Irma in the island nations off the coast of Cuba and Florida, the many people evacuated already from Florida, people who are just in the beginning stages of rebuilding in South Texas. So I've been asked to open us with an invocation. I would ask for all of us to keep in our prayers the many people who are going through a stormy time right now. Let us pray. O loving and gracious God, known by many names, whose nature is always to have mercy, who is full of compassion and love. We pray this night for the many people impacted by the devastating storms in recent weeks, and in this night and in the days ahead. We pray for shelter and safety and security for many people. And in the aftermath, for the generosity and the benevolence of people not only throughout this country, but throughout the world, who will help people in rebuilding. Sometimes it's in the worst of moments that we see the best in people. And that is why we're here tonight. We thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for the safe arrival of our speaker this evening, Mr. Khizr Khan. We pray, gracious God, that you will bless your servant, and you will bless each of us, that we may be inspired by what we hear, that we will leave this place with hope for our world, that we will believe the world can be better, and we will be motivated to be practitioners of civility and kindness and compassion for all people. Lord, if you bless us like that, we will indeed be truly blessed. Amen. Now it's my privilege to introduce to you Jane Henniger from the ACLU.
Good evening. We are a great nation. The man we all came to hear tonight reminded us so movingly last summer that we have a genius constitution. I have my dog-eared copy right here. I've been using it a lot lately. It gives us the values to guide us through difficulties: fairness, equality, and freedom. It also gives us the mechanisms which to correct ourselves over and over again. The Constitution creates a great system, but it's not perfect yet, and it has held America together for over 200 years. The ACLU is proud to play an important role in that system. We help turn the words of the Constitution into action, but the real work is with you. It's with us. It's with we, the people. We must take to the street and to the ballot box to remind our leaders and our fellow citizens of the core values and dictates of the Constitution. In search of a more perfect union, we have made progress, but we're not there yet. Every year, Constitution Day is celebrated on September 17th, and the ACLU is handing out constitutions here tonight in celebration. Hope you get one. At its inception, the Constitution left many people out. But slowly, with attention, revision, and care, the US Constitution has changed the world's understanding of the freedoms and liberties government must cede to we the people. But we still have work to do. We must hold every elected official accountable to the letter and the spirit of the Constitution. We, the people, must fight for fairness due immigrants. We must fight for women. We must fight discrimination on the basis of race, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religion. We must fight to protect each American's vote and each American's voice. And we will fight because those values, fairness, equality, and freedom, are baked into our American bones. I'm so pleased to be here tonight, so honored to introduce and welcome Khizr Khan, who so bravely and resolutely demands adherence to the Constitution and to our most precious shared values. He reminds us that we, the people, can and must speak truth to power and fight with dignity and civility for what is right. Khizr Khan was originally from Punjab province of Pakistan. He met his wife, Ghazala, at the University of Punjab, where she studied Persian, while he pursued an LLB in the Law College. Here, Khizr Khan earned an LLM degree from Harvard Law School and went on to work at a law firm in Washington, D.C. He and Ghazala have 3 sons, Humayun, Shahriar, and Omar. Their son, Humayun, attended the University of Virginia and was a member of the ROTC program there. He wanted to give back to the program and to his country and valiantly served in Iraq. He was sadly killed in Bakuba in an explosion. Also on stage will be John Kroll. John is the director of the Franklin College's Pulliam School of Journalism and host of No Limits, a twice-weekly news and public affairs show produced by WFYI. John is an award-winning reporter, editor, and columnist. During his career as a journalist, he has been honored with more than 80 awards for excellence in reporting, writing, and broadcasting. John is also the author of Emily's Walk and is at work on his 2nd book, along with 2 other documentaries, one of former US Senator Richard Lugar and one on the history of historic preservation in Indianapolis. He and his wife, journalist Jenny Lobam, have 2 teenage children and live in Indianapolis. And I should add that John blessed the ACLU for many years as my predecessor as executive director. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Khizr Khan and John Kroll.
Much. Thank you. Please be seated. I am undeservingly so humbled by your love, by your respect, by your courtesy. I stand under the grace of my brother here, so I'll let him start the conversation.
Certainly, shall we? Some ways I feel like after this, almost anything will be aftermath, right? And so, please, have a seat. First, I think I speak for everyone here. We are very glad that you are with us here in Indianapolis, that you are spending this time with us in this place. I want to talk a little bit, because I think one of the problems we have right now is that too many of us get reduced to symbols or types. You and your wife obviously worked very hard to come to this country, to make the sacrifices to get here. Could you talk a little bit about why that was as important to you as it was, and what the idea of America was that brought you here?
Sure, I'll be more than glad to answer your question, this and many, but first, our thoughts and prayers are with our brothers and sisters in Florida and in Texas, so please continue to pray for their safety and for their relief. Second, I so humbly say that our thoughts and prayers are with our men and women serving our armed forces throughout the world and in this country, and their families for their service and their sacrifice. Second, our thoughts and very sincere thanks to our law enforcement and their families. We fully acknowledge your sense of duty, your keeping us safe, your family's sacrifices. Thank you very much. We are grateful for your service and for your family's service. My love affair with American Constitution When I use the word American Constitution, I am not talking about the document. I am talking about the American values of this blessed nation. I was 22 years old law student in Pakistan when I took a course titled Comparative Constitutions of the World. The materials that I got for the class, I carried them to my dorm room and I placed them on the table. The very first line of the very first page was Declaration of Independence. I apologize if I begin to lose my composure. I was awestruck. Declaration, the very first word of it told me what America is. Generally, as a, to some extent, educated person, I know the colonial era and the countries that have gained independence. It is you gain independence, you are given independence, you acquire independence. There is no other nation. I challenge you even today. I know I am standing in front of learned audience. I challenge you today, there is no other nation that declares its independence except the United States of America. That is the spirit of this country. That is the spirit of this nation. So I was awestruck by the first line of the document that I read, Declaration of Independence. How come a nation can declare its own independence? So I read the rest of it, standing right there. I remember I took my shoes off because my feet got tired by the time I was reaching the end of that wonderful document. Then I flipped the pages. After the declaration was articles. I read them, made some sense. And then I got to the answers to the questions that has arisen in my mind, that this nation is declaring its independence from colonial system of government. How it is responding to all the indignities that were inflicted upon this nation by the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Third. I got to the 14th Amendment and I could not stand. My back was aching, my feet were hurting, but I was in awe struck by how this nation gained its independence, then showed and enshrined the dignities that it did not have, that it will have, all of us will have, this nation will have through the Bill of Rights. So to me, that love affair continues. And I see even today, whenever those dignities, I don't call them privileges, I don't call them, for conversation I may say these are Bill of Rights, but in fact those are human dignities. You go to any corner of the world and place these blessed Bill of Rights and say, these are the rights, we are going to give it to you. And they will automatically, without hesitation, will say, we want to live in that nation where these rights are guaranteed. So it is that put the seed of curiosity, wanting to learn more about America, wanting to come here. The difficulties that we went through, I am a person of humble means from beginning, a farmer's son, with some difficulty, passed the exam, passed the bar, then worked in Middle East to gather some funds, and then come to United States. The very first day, and the reason I narrate this, I want to remind all of us that we may be in difficult times, but the pure goodness of America prevails. The very first day we arrived in United States, I had rented a one-bedroom apartment. That's all I could afford at that time. I was taking my children and Ghazala and our bags into the apartment. 5 minutes later, there's a knock at our door. And Paulette, one of our neighbors, is standing there with 2 grocery bags. I opened the door and invited her in, and I said, "What is this, Paulette?" She said, "I saw that you have small children. I brought you some things that you may need immediately, some bread, some cookies, some milk, some water." Ghazala and I looked at each other. And we said to one another, maybe we must have done something good in our life that we have been rewarded by this, allowing us to be in this nation. This strange lady didn't ask what our faith was, where we have come from, what our language was, which God we worship. Out of pure goodness of her heart, goodness of America, she thought of small children, she thought of us and brought that. So this love affair has continued and continues, and it is that what is propelling me to continue to speak in favor of these human dignities.
It seems to me there were 2 love affairs. One was with the idea of the protections that America seemed to afford to you. You could have come here and experienced those. There was another love affair, the practice of law, particularly with the practice of American law, because you become a lawyer.
Yes.
Before you came here, had to go, and those, I'm sure we've got some lawyers in the room, you actually have had to pass the bar more than a few times. Many of you know what that experience is like. What was it about the law, and particularly practicing law in the United States, that appealed to you?
I have a bad habit of giving long-winded answers, so just bear with me.
You've got a willing audience, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Bear with me. Today we see that the world is divided in 2 sections. Just look. On one side, we have people that govern themselves, the people that are part of democracy, that live under democratic system. On other hand, we have strong men, we have authoritarian regimes, we have dictatorships, we have generals and military ruling. So when I came to the United States, I could not practice. I had to study further to qualify to take the bar exams, and those are most difficult bar exams. I am a member of 3 bars, New York, Washington, D.C., and Supreme Court of United States of America. I am so honored to be the member of these bars and several federal bars now. And the reason I wanted to practice law here was that democracy is nothing but tyranny of majority. So majority decides that we will turn off all the lights here. In democracy, that will happen. What stops majority from becoming tyranny is rule of law. In all the authoritarian regimes, you will see a common thread. They do not like rule of law. That is why they are called authoritarian regimes. That is why we run from it. We do not want in our country any authoritarian, be it president, be it governor, that dictating our lives. Therefore, I was so inspired. I used to see when I was growing up lawyers being beaten in Pakistan because they were against the dictatorships. That was the only profession that stood against the rulers, against the military rulers, for the civil rights, for the civil liberties. The founder of subcontinent, both Mahatma Lal Gandhi and Muhammad Ali Jinnah, both were brilliant lawyers. So we were inspired in our young age. I was very much inspired by their leadership, how we gained independence, how lawyers are symbol of liberties. They represent your rights. That is how I was so inspired. When I came here, I went through a rigorous course of law school, doing a graduate degree at Harvard Law School, and then taking the bar and finally being admitted. But it is that being somehow part of the rule of law that continues to inspire me. Without mentioning names, I just want to draw your attention to today's challenges that our blessed country, our system of government, our system of life faces. That is, judges are so-called. No good comes out of courts. That is a very old technique of authoritarian mentality. Authoritarian rulers always malign law, always malign rule of law throughout the world. So this is nothing new. Second thing that they malign is the independent press. The authoritarian mentality does not like independent press, so they malign. This is nothing new. I have seen twice in my life newspaper press was burned because they published a critical article about the military ruler. The only way they were allowed to republish was if they agreed to print the dictator's picture with compliments on the front page, and they obliged to gain the publication rights. So I have seen firsthand how these authoritarians govern. They will malign the courts, the rule of law. Rule of law is nothing, it's not a building, it's the people that live, people that hold these values intact. So that is how I was inspired by lawyers. I have seen and I have worked with amazingly patriot lawyers that stand to defend those who are hurting, those who need redress, and that continues to be the case.
I would like to remind everyone in the audience, if you have questions, we'll start collecting them around now, so please write them down and let people know that they are there. For most of your life here, because America clearly was, and the idea of coming to the United States, working within our system of constitutional protections, what you call the protection of human dignities, was a dream of yours. Let's go back like 15 months here. How did the reality match up to the dream? Once you were here, once you were living here, raising your family, was there a disparity? Was it?
Not at all. I am, some of you may be surprised how heartened I am. This is my 152nd appearance since last year. I will quickly tell you why we went to speak. We didn't want to go to speak up until the last minute. Our children, our well-wishers told us, do not go. And why I continue to speak and how heartened I am. I want to share this good news with you. This spirit that you sit under, this house of God, this blessed home where we sit today. This morning I was at another blessed house of God in a synagogue, night before another blessed house of God at ISNA's headquarters in the mosque there. This spirit, the concerns that you have, believe me, throughout the nation, exactly same. You're not alone in those concerns, in the feelings that you have in your hearts, that you feel concerned, where are we going, where are we headed? I assure you, from Portland to Texas to Toledo to Columbus to Des Moines, regardless of our political affiliations, let me share with you why we went and why I have continued. I'll share two events. First, briefly, I honor Captain Humayun Khan, for his service. We all honor his service and those who have given their all that they had, all of those who have died in the defense of this nation. Captain Humayun Khan was assigned in Baquba, Iraq in 2004. On June 8, that fateful day, he was inspecting his soldiers that at 8 o'clock in the morning, he saw a fast-moving vehicle coming towards the gate of the camp. Inside the walls were scores of American soldiers that had just finished their breakfast and they were assembling to go and do the day's work. He saw that vehicle coming very fast. Without hesitation, look at the faith, to the oath that he took to defend the Constitution and defend this nation. I only speak to remind us that there comes a time when nothing else matters but to defend the Constitution and defend the values of our country. He ordered all of his men at the gate. There were several soldiers fully armed. He could have ordered them to shoot that taxi right now from the tower up or on the ground. He did not do that. Just respecting that this may be a confused driver, this may be an innocent person who has made the mistake coming this way. He took 10 steps to stop, but he was a trained military officer. He ordered his men to hit the ground, and they all did. So did about 300 Iraqi Muslims that were standing at the gate to gain entry to do the day's work. They all went down. He took those 10 steps to stop that taxi, stop that car that was coming. Now we are told that he could have sit down, he could have moved away and let that taxi go into the gate and hit the gate. There was a chance scores of soldiers would be killed, scores of local Iraqis would be killed, but he stood in front of it, causing it to detonate prematurely. That day in Baquba, Iraq, only one soldier died. That was Captain Humayun Khan. He saved all of his soldiers and the rest of the camp. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. We miss, terribly, we miss his physical presence. But we know he's up there. He's with us. He did something so honorable. We are proud. This nation is proud of him. So to pay tribute to him, Democratic National Convention had prepared a tribute that was to be paid on Thursday of that week, on 28th of July. We were invited to come and speak. I immediately consulted my other sons, and they said, do not go. Well-wishers, they told us, do not go. You will be maligned, you will be disrespected. Nothing, no good will come out of this. This is a political event. We are non-political people. We have lived honorably, we have lived peacefully, and we want to maintain that. So we sat, we asked for 2 days to think about. Second day afternoon, I wanted to call and tell them that we are not coming. But before I did that, I went to check the mail. The mailbox is at a distance at our home in Charlottesville, Virginia. I went to check the mail, I opened the box, and there was one envelope, a small card, with our names on it and no stamp, so somebody must have dropped it in our mailbox. I immediately opened it out of concern. It had 4 names written on it. Name of the school, 5th grade, and 4 names. And there was a message, one line, that made us decide to go and speak. And that line was, Mr. and Mrs. Khan, please make sure Maria is not thrown out of this country. We love her very much. She is our friend. I read that, I brought that envelope immediately to Ghazala. I said, Ghazala, maybe our time has come. Maybe answer has come. Look what these students have written to us. We will go and we will speak. So we did. The second and more profound incidents and event took place that inspires me every day to continue to speak. We made the decision of going to speak in the room where Captain Humayun Khan's portrait is hung. When we decided we will go, before we called, I held Ghazala's hand and we looked at his portrait. We were 100% certain in our hearts that the goodness that we have received from this nation, the good that has come to me and my family, demands that we stand for something. We looked towards his picture and we said we will do exactly the same thing what he would have done if he was alive today, standing up for something good, standing up for those who cannot speak, standing up for those who have no voice. We went to speak and the rest is history. But 2 weeks later, after we had come back, I was in Washington, D.C., walking from one meeting to another. On the street, a lady touches my arm and said, Mr. Khan, I want to thank you for speaking on behalf of all of us. I looked towards her, I thanked her, I said, I am so humble you think that way, that we have spoken on your behalf. She said, I wanted to walk away. She said, no, let me tell you about my son. I have a 10-year-old son. We are citizens of this country. We have all the documents. We've been legal citizens of this country, but we look a little different. She was of Hispanic background. She said, my son is bullied so often for the last several months. I come home a few days earlier from my work and I see his door is closed and there is something he's listening to in the room. I knocked the door. He didn't open. I thought that this may be something important he's doing. I left him alone. Next day I came back, same thing. He's listening to something and his door is closed. I opened the door and I walked in. What are you listening? He said nothing, but he showed me the telephone. He was listening to your speech. I asked him, why yesterday you were doing same thing. Today you're doing same thing. Why are you listening to this speech so many times? And he said this. He said, Mother, whenever I am bullied in school, I come back and I listen to this speech. It heartens me. It heartens me and I go back again. Mother took this child back to principal and said that, look, my son had been going through this, please do something. She didn't say anything, she didn't lecture, she invited the whole class to her office and the teacher and said, class, I want you to listen to something. And she played that speech, that your friend had been listening because you have been unkind to him, and send them back to their classes. 2 days later, this mother asks her son, how it has been since we've been to principal's office. The son smiles and says, they all have become my friends. So the purpose is that sometime, whether we want or we don't, and I address all of you for that, whether we like it or we don't, whether we choose or we don't, our destiny, our time, our mission has been chosen. And that is to stand for goodness of this country. civility in our society, civility in our political discourse. You are the custodian of these good values, of the goodness of this country. Wherever you see incivility, wherever you see unfairness, stand up and speak. Don't have to shout, don't have to fight, simply express your opinion. Say it loudly, 1 person, 2 person, 5 person. It is an impactful democratic practice. It is an impactful democratic way of life that we are blessed to have and to be living under.
And I don't think people in the audience can see this, but you have a pen in your lapel. Could you tell the folks what that is?
This pen you never want to have, but I wear it so proudly. This is a Gold Star pen. No family wants to be Gold Star. This is an honor that member of your family has sacrificed his or her life in defense of this country. It is bestowed in the memory of that sacrifice. None of us wants to be wearing this pin, but I wear it and we wear it, and many Gold Star families wear it with pride to honor the sacrifice of our loved ones.
And I apologize because this question may seem somewhat intrusive, but I think it gets to really what is at stake here. In some ways, your surviving sons were right. Your other family members were right. After you spoke at the Democratic National Convention, you were in fact maligned. Your son's service and his sacrifice was maligned. You would be something other than human if you didn't feel like your faith in this country had been betrayed. Could you talk a little bit about what that was like, what it felt like, this country that you had really battled to come here, you had offered a son to, what it felt like to get that response?
Yes, as a human being, it is to some extent disheartening. It is discouraging that after doing so much, living honorably, following the laws, paying the taxes, and living a decent life to some extent, raising a decent family. My other 2 children are very successful scientists, that I participated in that. And the other choice was to be quiet then or be quiet now. There is only one reason that I continue to speak, and that is when I stand before you, I fully understand each and every person's concern in your heart. What made you drive to come to this event? Come to the event this morning in the Blessed Synagogue. Come to the event last night at the Islamic Center. I fully recognize that concern, and I would be not faithful to the oath that I took when I became the citizen of this country. I remember very clearly going to the federal courthouse, raising my hand, and taking the oath to defend the Constitution of the United States. I would be betraying that oath. My son set an example of offering all of his, whatever he had, his most precious life in defense of the American values, the goodness of America. I would be not upholding that oath that I took if I did not continue to speak because of some minor inconvenience to my life. I am heartened. As I said, throughout the country I have traveled and I continue to travel. I leave from here tomorrow morning, I go to Yale. I speak there to Yale Law School and to the local lawyers there. From there, I go to Constitution Hall. We are commemorating the signing of the Constitution at National Archives in Washington, D.C. From there, next weekend in Richmond. From there to Boston, commemorating Holocaust, reminding ourselves what could happen. That reminds me a letter that we have received thousands and thousands of letters. One letter stands out. It's written by a Second World War retired Army nurse. 26 pages. On the 26th page, she writes, she says, Mr. and Mrs. Khan, continue to speak. If more people would have spoken prior to Second World War, all the atrocities that were committed against our brothers and sisters, against the humanity, could have been avoided. There comes a time when your role is chosen. You don't choose your role, your Creator has chosen your role. So she encourages us to continue to speak, and we do. And we continue to speak on behalf of all the children that had been worried, that remain worried. Because majority of America, I have stood in Des Moines, Iowa, half of the hall was full of veterans, our veterans. They had voted against my candidate, but that doesn't make them any less Americans. They are honorable, decent people that have served this country. They stood to receive me and asked me some very difficult questions. They said, Mr. Khan, we voted against your candidate, but now we are concerned. Where are our health care benefits? Where are our employment benefits? Worst, now we have lost the funding for the Legal Services Corporation that provided us the legal services. We are very concerned. How can we correct this mistake that we have made? And my advice to them and my advice to all of us that live in democracy, we have faith in our system of government, in our political system. We will change this. We will change it through legal means. We will change it through elections. Democratic process is messy. It takes long time to correct the errors when we make. So my advice to them was, continue to speak as you have stood up in this gathering. Go back, call your senators, tell them that you want to hear from them on these issues. Call your congressman, call your mayor, call your city council that you want to hear from them loudly in public. And you saw what happened to the Affordable Care Act. It was your voice, it was our voice that defeated that effort that was to remove it. Have faith. You have power. Have faith in your voice. I assure you, you are not alone. Don't feel isolated. You have entire nation. Majority of this nation stands with us. And look, power of simple words, simple kindness towards each other. I was in Portland, Oregon, spoke to a very large crowd. At the end, a Muslim lady approached me. She said, Mr. Khan, I have to share with you my story. I have 2 small children. We were very worried about what is taking place. I was standing at the bus stand. A very well-dressed gentleman started to walk towards us, and I began to tremble. I have small children with me. What is he going to say to me? And she said, this is what he said. And we felt as if we live in true America. This gentleman pointed his finger towards this lady in front of her children, said, ma'am, I am with you. I support you. Be strong. I stand with you. and walked away. That made this lady, she shook her children. She said, did you see? This is true America. This is the real America. Sometimes these simple words, simple gesture of kindness, that is the teaching of our faith. I sit in this blessed God's house, and I must share this with you that regardless of color, regardless of origin, regardless of languages and all that, our Creator has created us, all of us, with same equal dignity. Just remember that. That is what is at the foundation of this Bill of Rights. What is equal protection? Our civil rights leaders of this country fought to make the system fair, fairer for all of us, regardless of our color, regardless of our origin, and we are so proud. Believe me, rest of the world consider us, regardless of this momentary dark period, considers us beacon of hope. Beacon of hope for the rest of mankind. What a blessed land, what a blessed nation we are part of. Always rejoice that, gain strength in that, in our civility, in the civility of our system. We disagree, yet we respect. We disagree, but we consider each other of equal dignity and equal protection of law.
I'd like to remind everyone to write down your questions, and people will pick them up. We'll bring them to the stage. I'm going to ask one to set up one of the first questions we have here. Originally, probably the most unforgettable moment from the Democratic National Convention was the moment when you pulled out your copy of the Constitution, which I presume you still have with you right now, right? In your pocket, yes. Do you sleep with it beside your bed? And my understanding is that actually that was not part of the speech that you drafted, that it was a spur-of-the-moment decision to pull it out. Could you talk about what went through your mind when you decided to reach in and pull that copy of the Constitution out?
Sure. Quickly, how that Constitution came to be in my pocket is, since 2005, we invite every year cadre of Army ROTC cadets to our home. They step into our home, we treat them with the food and other good things, and we let them wander into Captain Humayun Khan's room. They look at all of his medals and credits and all of that and talk to one another. Unanimously, they all say that this is first time we've been in a Muslim home. This looks like our parents' home. This is no different. This is no different. They send us cards afterward that thank you for showing us. This would have not happened. They take the oath a few weeks or few days afterwards after they visit our home. Even now, that tradition continues. So we've been doing this since 2005. I used to present Senator McCain's book, Why Courage Matters, to each and every cadet by telling them that this was the last book Captain Humayun Khan read. But then it became expensive. It was about $19. $19 a book. So Ghazala said, you have to find a more reasonable way of showing your patriotism. So I looked up American Bar Association's website, pocket constitutions for 99 cents if you buy them 10. So I ordered 50 of them for the next 2 years. So whenever cadets came to our home, we would present them with the copy of the pocket constitution with an instruction to them that few days later, you will be taking an oath to this Constitution, make sure you read what is in it. Some would admit, they would say that they had taken a civics course, they had taken a political science course, but they have never read the Constitution in this order, meaning Declaration of Independence, Articles, and then Bill of Rights. So then I began to keep a copy in my pocket for the mere reason that whenever I would go to speak, I would cite from it. I would read the First Amendment. And I urge you to read it after this conversation, the first 5 words of the First Amendment. No, I have done that exercise. No other constitution of the world lists that way. It says, Congress shall make no laws, prohibits the institution of majority in democratic system, puts a constraint, so you cannot touch these laws, these rights, these are so sacred. The freedom of press, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom to address your grievances against your government. These are sacred rights. Other constitutions of the world say Congress or assembly or parliament can do this, can do this, can do this, can do this. This is the only nation, blessed nation, where our forefathers saw the wisdom. They told the Congress, you cannot touch these rights. That is why I call them human dignities. So I started to keep the copy of the Constitution in my pocket, just to talk about it, read it sometime. 14th Amendment, Section 1 is my most favorite. I urge you to read it again today. Or whenever you get an opportunity, you will come to realize, my God, what a wonderful, wonderful protections and system of government we have. It is worth preserving because it is under challenge. It is under question. So we got ready. There is an interesting part of writing a speech was that once we accepted, they told us 2 minutes to speak. Say whatever you want to say. So I sat down, began to write this speech, 5 pages, 10 pages, 12 pages. And I wanted to express all of my grievances, how my children, how small kids that sent us that little card have been aggrieved. So next morning, I asked Ghazala to sit and listen to my speech. So I'm reading to her and she's looking at her watch. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 18 minutes. She said, Mr. Khan, you can do 2 things, either cut it or speak loudly or speak faster. So I read it faster. Still, it was 12 minutes. And so we began to narrow it down. She's my editor. She edited it, and we were left with 260 words. 130 words is recommended for each minute. So we are ready to go to the convention in Philadelphia. We are staying in Holiday Inn, came down. They had told us to make sure not bring any metal coins or keys or in your pocket. Security is very tight. So we are coming down and I'm patting my coat and I feel that there is something in my pocket and I touch it and of course it's my copy of the Constitution. So I tell Ghazala that I am saying, have you read the Constitution of the United States? If not, I'll lend you a copy of mine. And may I pull it at that time and wave it? And she says, no, you cannot do this. And she said, she's always right and she's always giving me good advice. She said, we should consult the producers. Once we get there, we take their permission first that I can pull out the Constitution. So we sat down in the cab and I'm saying that if they said no, then we'll just leave it there. But if they said yes, this is what I will do. And she says, look at this. This is nothing. This wouldn't mean anything. So put it back and bring it this way. So throughout the cab.
Is that the actual
No, this
copy?
is not the actual. The actual one has been placed with Virginia Historical Society. They have acquired it. So throughout the travel, I am doing this. I am doing this. So we get to the green room. There are lots of lights, floodlights, and lots of noise, just to get us oriented, because ordinary people normally, like myself, we don't speak in front of large crowds, to make sure we don't get confused because of lights and noise. So we are in the green room, and we are brought to the podium to practice. And that's when I asked the producer, can I do this at that time? And he's standing there, and he walks close to me and looks into my eyes. Mr. Khan, are you ready to do this? I said, yes, may I? He said, that is going to be very impactful. Go ahead and do that. So that's what brought the Constitution to.
The reason I asked that question is we've got a couple of questions along this theme from the audience, and I'm going to synthesize a little bit. How has your life changed since that unforgettable moment when you pulled your Constitution out of your pocket at the Democratic National Convention?
That was really, I am sure that I am undeservingly sitting in front of very thoughtful people. Believe me, that was just a gesture. That was a gesture, mere gesture. What it was an hint. It was an hint to our nation and to the rest of the world that we live under the rule of law, under the Constitution, and it's guaranteed. No one can violate those guarantees. No one can violate the dignities that are enshrined in Constitution. Life has changed to some extent. I sleep less, I eat less, I travel a lot. I have not worked for almost over a year now, so the savings are getting meager, but the work must be done. If today we have gathered here, if few of us have been heartened, thank you. Thank you. If some of us are heartened by this gathering to see how many of us are concerned about what is taking place, because the next stage automatically comes, how can we fix it? How can we make it better? How can we strengthen our system of government? How can we strengthen our system of democracy? What role I can play? There had not been any election year or afterwards where so many organizations to reflect our concerns have been organized and have been formed. Believe me, throughout the nation, there are concerned, patriotic American, regardless of political affiliations. I don't dispute that, but every one of us is concerned, every one of us wants to move forward to make our nation better, wants to keep it beacon of hope for the rest of the world.
What are the 3 things that each person can do on a daily basis that can be done to bring unity when we live in a social media world? Discourse and understanding seem difficult when we can't sit face to face and learn from one another.
Patience. I have learned one thing, that you grant equal dignity to those who disagree with you. That is one thing that I practice in my life. I have had run-in with the people that totally do not like what I am doing, what I have done, who I am, why I am here, what am I doing in the United States. But I have granted them equal dignity. And I say that to them. I said, look, regardless of our disagreements, we will speak to one another in a civilized manner. You can say whatever you wish to say, then you will hear me what I have to say, and I have remained polite, dignified in that conversation. So 3 things that this question asks. One is be patient. Second thing, do not be quiet. Raise your voice. It doesn't mean you shout. Raising voice means that if you can make a group in your community, in your neighborhood, on your street, in your organization, in your faith groups, that will speak, that will address, as we have spoken to one another, in front of one another, that will make amazing difference. The most, I have never contributed to any political campaign before. Now that I don't have as much money, I contribute $5, $10, because these representatives that represent my voice, my perspective, deserve to be heartened. So you hearten, you call them, you tell them, I am with you, I am going to make sure I bring 5 more neighbors with me on the day of election. We want our American values, the values of civility, the values of equal dignity and equal protection prevailing in this country. With that voice, believe me, do not underestimate the power of your voice. You have seen on television how these senators and these congressmen were questioned and were challenged in the town hall meetings. And they were made to reposition themselves. That is the power of our voice as ordinary citizens. And these are the 3-4 things that we should continue to do, continue to speak. Your time has chosen you to be in this tumultuous time. Stand up, speak, and you will look back a few years from now, you will look back and you will feel so proud that you served your country with honor, you served your nation, you stood for the goodness of America. You will feel so proud of this moment that you have embraced so bravely, embraced with courage, embraced for good.
What role does faith and spirituality play in democracy and citizenship? What role does faith and spirituality play in democracy and citizenship?
Well, of course. I mean, I would amiss that my faith has played a tremendous role in making me a good citizen. I consider myself a patriotic American, responsible for my country's safety, for my country's well-being. I'll be the first one, and my family members will be the first one to stand in front of anyone that looks with bad intention towards my country. So my faith teaches me, and I am to some extent familiar with other faiths as well. Our faith, that is why I call our faith teaches us to be good citizens. We have been placed on this earth by our Creator with a dignified mission of uplifting each other, not depressing each other, uplifting one another. So spirituality, faiths have played always very important role in our country. It doesn't mean that everyone should follow my faith. I should have the sense enough to dignify each person's choice and grant them equal dignity and equal respect that as our Creator has created us with. So that is the role. It's a very important role. It's a very significant role. In democracies, people of faith have always walked ahead of the crowd with message of tolerance, patience, peace. And we have seen that. Look at the efforts of our civil rights leaders. We would have not gained in the area of our civil liberties, our civil rights, without the leadership of our faith leaders. They were ahead. They were the first one to sacrifice their comfort, their life, their liberties so that we can enjoy the civil liberties and civil rights. So we cherish their sacrifice. We see them as setting an example for the rest of us to move forward. All faiths in the United States. And that is where, when you read the Establishment Clause, the government has forbidden to interfere in practice of faith, because the government has no business in establishing or discouraging practice of faith. So we enjoy these privileges and these immunities and these freedoms so that our faith leaders, the role that they chart for themselves, so that they can lead us towards better America.
There's a subtext to several of the questions, and I'm going to try to do a synthesis here. Well, I'll ask it simply. How do you maintain calm when your faith is demeaned?
Yeah, I'm concerned. I remain calm for a couple of reasons. I was a small child. My grandfather used to read stories to me to teach me some lessons. One story that he told me was this, and that's where I seek answer, was that one night he came. We didn't have electricity, so he used to come at night after everybody has calmed down, and he would sit at my cot and would read a story or tell a story, and there will be moon on the sky, and it'll be a wonderful moment. And many stories, many stories, but this is one. He asked me one night, he said, "Where does God live?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Does he live in the mountains, very high mountains? Does he live in the oceans, large oceans? Does he live in forest? Where does God live?" And I said, I don't know. And he said, "Think about it." So I thought about it all day, that he's going to ask me tonight again. So he comes back. He tells me a different story, but doesn't answer the questions. So before he leaves to go to his bed, I ask him, are you ready to tell me the answer to that question? So he asked me, "Have I thought enough?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Maybe tomorrow, think a little more." So the third night when he comes, I ask him, I said, "I'm not going to listen to the story. You tell me the answer, because I have pondered enough. And this is what he said. He said, "What did you think?" He said, "Because you have said that, is it mountains or river or oceans or forests?" He said, "Think, if God lived in the mountains, mountains are very high, close to the heaven. All those who wander in the mountains would have found him. So he's not in the mountains." I said, "Okay, then maybe in oceans, very vast ocean, and 2/3 of the world and all of that." And he said, "Look, if he lived in the ocean, all the fish and the creature of the sea would have found him. So he's not in the ocean either." Then I said, "Well, then it has to be in the forest." He said, "Think about it." So I thought about it, and he says, if he was in forest, all the sheep and all the animals that wander in the forest, they would have found him. So I said, "Then where does he live?" So there was quiet for a moment, and he looks at me. And he points towards my heart. And it said, that's where God lives. He said, always remember this. Regardless of your circumstances, regardless of how horrible things could get for you, always remember, God lives here for everyone. Grant each other equal dignity, equal respect, regardless of how they treat you. And he recited Rumi's one line which says, so what if you are thirsty? Rumi says, so what if you are thirsty? Be river for everyone. That's where I seek peace when somebody attacks my faith, because Prophet, peace be upon him, used to be attacked every day, and his answer used to be, they attack me because they don't know me. When they know me, they will not attack me. So it is that's where I seek some comfort. I draw patience from those stories, and life continues.
This is going to be a large question, a large synthesis of several. We've gotten several questions that ask how you reconcile your faith in America's Constitution and our original documents when there were inequalities and injustices woven into them that in many ways persist in our society to this day.
Let me, I indulge you. This is a wonderful question, so close to my heart and my life. That is why I cherish the 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, equal protection of laws. Some of my faith brothers and sisters may get annoyed from me, but that's okay. I have appeared in United States courts in defense of Muslim women when they are being subjected to inequality claimed under the Islamic law. I have appeared before the judges in their decision-making to share my understanding what family law of some of these Muslim countries are. I am an educated Muslim, I am a lawyer, I know the law, I know my faith. There was a case in Phoenix, a family law case. A marriage of 20 years was being dissolved. Husband had accumulated millions of dollars, and he wanted to give his wife only a few $100s because that is what the marriage contract said. And judge was being swayed that, Your Honor, this agreement, this contract, marriage contract, is the prenup agreement. She's a Muslim. Let's ask her, do you have faith in this document, which is your marriage contract under the Islamic law of Egypt? She said, yes, I am a Muslim. I accept that. But that document was being misinterpreted to the judge as a prenup agreement. It was not a prenup agreement. That is one explanation I presented. This is a marriage contract. The judge immediately understood that he was being misled by the other side. Second, and more important, I informed the court, and in there lies the answer to your question. I said, Your Honor, if you studied the family laws of the Muslim countries, you will come out with a concrete opinion that these are, to some extent, French laws, English laws, hodgepodge of laws where colonists left them as codified laws. All these nations and these countries have done, changed the name, put it on Islamic family law of Pakistan. I am a lawyer. I have studied Islamic law of Pakistan. There is nothing Islamic in that. This injustice will not continue. And I cited the equal protection of law, where in United States, every person that is subject to the laws will be treated equally. Therefore, this document doesn't stand as prenup agreement. He ruled in the favor of this soon-to-be divorced wife. That explains my explanation of the inequalities that exist. Some of us do not take the time. We simply read the title. We do not see how these laws that are considered Muslim law of Indonesia. I have studied it. There are patches of the colonists that left their legal mark on those laws. Criminal Procedure Code of Pakistan is laid with the British enactment of the civil procedure for Pakistan. All we have done is, I challenge any authority to read it. I challenge, the only thing we have done, the governments have simply changed the title, call it Penal Code of Islamic Republic of Pakistan. That does not make it Islamic law. Then I have heard scholars, some so-called scholars, saying, well, we don't want Sharia law in United States. Well, my brother, there is no Sharia law coming to United States. Have faith, have faith, have faith in your 14th Amendment. Have faith in your equal protection, because you neither know the Sharia law nor you know your own constitutional law. The equal protection prohibits any law to come in the United States. You have already guarantees built in. Let me talk about Islamic law and Islam. I met a very renowned Muslim scholar, and he said, you know why I am in the United States? I grew up in a Muslim country. I educated in Muslim country. I did my PhD from a Muslim country, a renowned university. I did not find Islam in those Muslim countries. I come to United States and I see here and there and here and there practice of Islam. So when you have a discourse among ignorance, you cannot make progress, you cannot move forward, you cannot tell them, because they already have an agenda of misinforming the public. First, I have faith in the equal protection of the Constitution, that no injustice, regardless of where it comes from, will be instituted in the United States. I have spoken to the jurists of this country, and they agree with me, the most renowned jurists, that the Equal Protection Clause closes the door on hodgepodge of these various laws from different countries that are instituted to treat women in Muslim countries so unequally, to keep them suppressed, to keep them indignified. That will not happen here. And they agree with me that our Constitution makes sure that that doesn't happen. This is, I only cited one case. There is case after case after case where I have appeared pro bono to make sure that I inform the court that sometimes these forged documents that are being presented before them, and unfortunately it happens in the family courts between men and women. And I am so proud to say that I have always appeared on behalf of my sisters, my daughters, and my mothers. Because I know because I know there is a chance of fair treatment in the court system built under equal protection of law. There is a chance of fair treatment. Wherever I appear, fairness has prevailed. I am so proud of that role, that humble role that I continue to play.
This will have to be the last question. I apologize to members of the audience whose questions we couldn't get to. There were many great ones. We have gotten sort of a repeat of the same sort of question from parents, a couple of teachers, a political science professor from Marian University, and I think it's appropriate because it leaves us looking forward here. What is the one piece of advice you would give to young people in this country right now?
I normally, when I talk to my future leaders, I don't sit, I remain stand up. If you forgive me to stand up, because this is for my future leaders. You are custodians of the goodness of America. Never see them any less. You are the custodians of the Constitution of the United States. You are the custodians of the greatness of this nation. Make sure you have faith in these documents, in these values, in this goodness of the United States. Make sure that you hold them tight, because you are going to lead us forward. Wherever there had been an organization of young people, be it university or school or high school or law school, the rest of the community has followed the lead, and they have seen the goodness, they have seen the wisdom, they have seen the goodness of this country. And you remain the custodian. Always consider yourself that these documents, these values have been placed in your hands to move forward. You can make the difference. You can make the change. It is possible. You will do it. I have faith in you. This nation has faith in you to move us forward in a better direction, in a civilized direction, in a compassionate direction, in a direction deserving of the greatness of this country. Thank you. God bless. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm so humble. Thank you.
While we are standing, there are some other people here that obviously deserve our thanks. The many organizers, I cannot go through the list of people who put together, and organizations who put together this wonderful evening. Please join me in thanking them for making this possible for us to share. Please give yourselves a hand for caring enough to come out. And most of all, please join me in thanking our distinguished guest, Mr. Khizr Khan.